Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's Trish.
Hi, Trish. Okay.
All right.
So we're good, Sandra?
Yeah, I think so. Just give me 1 second, Jody. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay. All right. All right. Recording has started. So welcome, everybody. And thanks for joining us to the Accelerate Your Business at Lunch HR workshop. The session is brought to you by the Accelerate Business Recovery Virtual Hub, sponsored by Desjardins Insurance, and partially funded by Employment Ontario, the Ontario government, and the Canadian government. I'm delighted to introduce our guest speaker today, Jody Ziegelstein-Yip. Jody is a 24-year leader and veteran in the HR community and is the Chief HR Innovator and founder of Enliven HR Consulting. Jody plays a major role in her clients' businesses by delivering innovative, sustainable, and strategic HR programs and solutions designed to unleash leadership potential, drive performance, increase organizational effectiveness, and steer business results. Jody engages small, medium, and large local, national, and multinational clients in a variety of industries. Jody's experience comes from both working with clients for more than half her career, as well as in human resources in the corporate world, where she has worked for various organizations. And Jody, with that, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Sandra. Well, welcome back to those of you who I met last week for our first session. Today is going to be our second session, and just really happy to see some people who have returned for today's session. And for those of you who are new to the session today, welcome. Today's a very, very interactive session. And so I want you to ensure that you kind of have a quiet space around you, that you're able to kind of be within your own thoughts for some of it. It's a bit of soul searching for yourself during the workshop. And so I just want to walk you through the different three-part series that we've got. So we've got, the first one was actually talking about organizational culture. How do you build an organizational culture? And with that, engaged and productive teams. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive at diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we're going to do it in a slightly different way. It may be a tactic that you may want to use with your own teams. And so I kind of want to walk you through what that looks like. And then we're going to be closing out our workshop series, I think in a couple of weeks, by talking about attracting, developing, and retaining talent. Particularly right now, it's such a challenge to attract really good talent and retain talent. And so we'll go through some strategies in the last workshop that we've got together. So in terms of logistics, if you've got any questions, technical issues throughout, you can just use the chat function, and you can just mute your line when you're not speaking, just to avoid any kind of background noise. I would love to see people on camera if you do have a camera. It just, particularly for a session like this, where we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's one of those things that I think just lends itself to greater collaboration. And so if you do have a camera, it would be great to kind of see everybody so that we can collaborate as much as possible. So again, we're taking a deep dive into diversity, equity, and inclusion today. And so let's just kind of start off with some intros. So obviously, Sandra already introduced me to you. But what I want to do is I want you to introduce yourself to the rest of the group. And so the way to do that is I want you to talk about your name, role, the organization that you work in. And then I want you to think about one thing that sets you apart from others in your organization. Okay, just one thing that sets you apart. Okay, does that make sense for everybody? Does that sound good? Yes, hopefully. Yep. Okay, yes. So what I normally do, for those of you who have joined our sessions before, we do Hollywood Squares. So does anybody want to go first, who will then pass the baton to other people as we go through the room?
I'm happy to go first. This is Trish.
Thanks,
Hi,
Trish.
everyone. My name is Trisha Drew. I'm the Human Resources Manager at KTI Limited here in Aurora. And something that I think sets me apart from others in my organization is that I'm very open to others' ideas and willing to listen to anyone. And I think I'll pass it on to Brooke.
You, Trish. Hi, everyone. My name is Brooke. I also work for KTI Limited here in Aurora, and I'm the Human Resource Generalist. I think one thing that sets me apart from myself in comparison to my organization would probably be my bubbly personality. I know, there's many other people that also have bubbly personalities, but I think I'm very larger than life. So I guess I will pass it on to Sienna.
Oh, hi. I'm Shauna. I'm the Member Relations Ambassador with the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. I wouldn't say that I have a particular trait that sets me apart from my coworkers. There's two of them, and we all have very similar skill sets as far as personality and the way we provide customer service for our members. The only thing I would say that really sets me apart might be my age. I'm at least 10 years younger than my coworkers in my organization. So.
You get to pass the baton, Shauna.
Right, I have to pass it on. Okay, so I'm going to pass it on to Fiona. Hi, Fiona.
Hi, Shauna. Good morning, everyone. I'm Fiona, the owner at Coconut Village Spa here. Was the question about separating from people you work with or your industry? Did I misunderstood that?
Just from your organization. So one thing that sets you apart from others in your organization.
Oh, there's no other like Coconut Village for sure. So that's definitely our service.
Let's go industry then.
Yeah, for industry, like, we offer an absolute unique service for everybody. And it is the vibe and the personality somebody said before. So I can take that one. So thank you. Looking forward to hearing the conversations.
You get to choose the next person.
To Lillian.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be back again. Sorry, I'm late. I hope I got the question, like what sets me apart from others in my organization. Yeah, it's good we're asking this. I work with my daughter very closely and other team members. So about 2 nights ago, I was telling her, I think I'm very tolerant, right? I didn't know I have that personality, but a lot of things have come up, like the way she wants us to decide and what I say. I think I'm very tolerant, yeah. And which has helped us like retain a lot of staff because I let people do things, I get to talk to them. I don't assume from a first mistake or a second, right? I give people a lot of chances and that has helped us retain a lot of staff. Like when somebody does something bad, they were expecting you to react the other way, but you come in nicely to them, like they feel it, right? I've had staff that if I weren't tolerant, I think we could have let them go and we could have missed something very good because now when they're working, they stick and they know like, I did this and they still kept me. I have to do my best. Yeah. Thank you.
So Lillian, you get to pass it on to the next person.
I see Trish. I don't know. You hear me?
I do hear you, but I went first, so we could find somebody else.
Okay. I don't know who's still there. Christina?
Hi, sorry about that. I was had to take a quick call. So I'm Christina Carter. I work for Thermogenics in Aurora, and we manufacture boilers, and we've been around for well over 35 years now. I think the one thing that sets me apart is I feel as being in HR for over 20 years, I would like to feel that I'm more open to employees feeling that they have a voice and that they can be a part of our change, because I think change management is extremely important in today's world. And I know from different businesses that I've been from, employees didn't really so much have a voice in terms of what that could look like. So I'm very inclusive in that. And I am not too sure who has gone. Did Suzanne go yet? Okay, Suzanne, you're up.
Thank you so much. I'm Suzanne Haynes, Executive Director for the Aurora Cultural Center. It's so lovely to meet you all. There's a number of things that separate, well, how I am different from my team, but one of the things that people don't tend to know about me is that I actually played basketball in Estonia and Russia. And so it's always one of those things when I work in the arts that I have any kind of sports background. People are like, really? Why would you? Wow. So I thought it was something fun to share.
You get to pass it over to somebody else, Suzanne.
Why do we forget this?
That's okay.
I would love to pass it over to Tsungai. Nice to see you again, too.
Hey. Hi, everybody. My name is Tsungai. I'm the General Manager for the Microtile in Aurora. What sets me apart from other people in the organization? The obvious one is I am from Africa. And so a lot of people tend to confuse the accent and then the place. So it's always a conversation starter in hotels. I am also a very adventurous African who likes to ski. And that is usually something a lot of people don't get, but I love to ski. And I think we, is it Iffy who's on the phone here? I'm not sure Iffy is ready. So David.
Unmute, but yeah, let's go with David.
We'll go with
David.
David.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think I am the sole male representative here, so I have to be very careful. I'm in a unique situation because I manage a couple of offices in our firm's organization, and there's a lot of bottom up and top down issues that we have to deal with when it comes to this topic. Sometimes I feel that, when the firm takes on something as a whole cross country, it tends to lose sight of the little offices and kind of gloss over with their mandates, expecting that what applies to everybody should apply to little firms. And sometimes the difficulties and the differences in little firms aren't taken into account. One thing I like to create is a culture of inclusion, where the people that technically, according to the chain of command, report to me, but it's not really a reporting direct line. It's more of like a group centric organization where individuals that I work with have just as much right to say that I'm wrong versus me, telling them that they have to do something different. So in other words, if we work together as a group, I'm open to the fact that you have a difference of opinion and you're entitled to voice that, and you will never be judged on that. Because too many times I feel people are afraid to say things and tend to lose out, or because they're afraid to say things, they minimize their importance. And that's really not the kind of culture I like to create. So if you have an opinion, you're entitled to it. You should voice it, but do it in a proper fashion, and everybody will listen and pay heed. We may not always agree with it, but you have the right and the respect to say what you want to say. Let's go to Sandra. I don't think Sandra's actually talked.
I haven't. Thanks, David. So yeah, like Shauna said, I don't know if it sets me apart from, the other two wonderful ladies that I work with. But I do feel that I'm very empathetic. I try to be a very good listener. I do notice a lot of, the nonverbal communication that happens. I try not to cut anyone off when they're speaking. I like to give them, let them say whatever they need to say, and then I can chime in. So yeah, I feel that empathy is right up there.
I think we only have two more people. Nancy, you haven't gone today yet, right?
Nope, I haven't. Try to get my video on. I'll turn it off again later because it tends to freeze if I have both going. So I'm Nancy Briard from Hope House Community Hospice in Aurora. And I guess one of the things that sets me apart is, well, two things. One is that I was hired in July. So while the office has been closed, so I've worked remotely and supported, a couple of events, golf event, and a couple of other fundraising events without ever really having worked in the office with the other staff. So, so that's different. My background of human resources, volunteer management, and fundraising management spans a lot of nonprofit organizations in York Region, as well as South Lake Hospital and the region of York. So I kind of get the different cultures between private, government, nonprofit, so that helps as well. So I think that's what sets me apart. And look forward to learning from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. The only person we had left was, I don't know, Sandra, do you know if it's what the individual's name is? Sorry, you're muted right now. Sorry.
Sorry about that. It's Ifioma.
Oh, okay. Ifi, are you able to unmute your line? Doesn't appear to be.
Doesn't
okay.
sound like.
Did
okay,
Brooke go
that's okay.
as well?
Sorry, Shauna?
Did Brooke go?
Brooke did go, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let me reshare my screen with you. And so I want you to kind of think about this as a practical session that, again, you can kind of translate into your own organizations. And so what I want to do is we're going to discover the difference between diversity, equity, and inclusion in a very practical way. And then what we're going to do is focus our energy on why should we actually leverage the differences that we've got on the teams? Why is it so important? And we're going to just really quick high level touch on identifying and planning a plan to create your own inclusive workforce. Okay, so I'll give you some pointers in terms of what that could look like for you. But again, really the heart of what we're trying to get to today is what is this whole concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion in play? And so let's start to explore that a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to keep this as our larger group breakout. What I'm going to ask Sandra to do is she's going to actually pause the recording right now. And the reason for that is because this activity has, it asks you to bring a part of yourself out that perhaps you may not feel comfortable doing to a large audience that may be listening to the recording. I always kind of pause recordings at this time where people can really freely share more about themselves. And so if you don't have a scrap sheet of paper with you, or you don't have the participant guide that Sandra sent out, here's what I want you to do. Grab that sheet of paper, open up the guide, and I want you to just write down I am 5 times. Okay, so
help or discover people's differences and include them, or feel like more of an inclusive environment, accepting of all people.
Sometimes we are very limited in our thinking in terms of what diversity, equity, and inclusion actually means. And when we break it down, we're really talking about people's identities and what makes them who they are. And there's, I mean, all of us shared different experiences today. Some of us shared experiences as to who we are as people. Some of us shared experiences to our families, to, what, different adventures that we've had, things that we have gone through in our lives. And so sharing those ideas with others in a very open and safe environment, sometimes people are actually scared to ask the question. And what, I think is really important, particularly right now, is like we have clients who will call us and they say, can you do diversity, equity, and inclusion training? And I said, sure, we can. What exactly are you looking for? They're like, just like give the definitions and talk through like what it means. I said, can we do a little bit more than that? And can we just talk about each other, like just talk about how we start to really look at each other as, us valuing differences that bring people together to work every single day, and really looking at what makes people who they are, what makes them come to our environment every day to do great work. Let's start to really look at that from a much more holistic perspective. And so I want to share my screen with you. All right. So if we look at kind of the concept of diversity and you think about, okay, yeah, it's kind of a formal definition, you know, diversity is, you know, the inclusion of people, different races, cultures, etc. The condition of having or being composed of different elements, very technical. If we really think about what it actually is, though, the whole concept of diversity is it's really what makes us unique as individuals, okay? And it's what differentiates us from one another. Okay, if we layer on the concept then of equity, okay, because if we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you think about equity as being more justice, freedom from biases, any kind of favoritism, something that's, you know, essentially equitable in the workplace, okay, or in the world. The concept of equity, as I kind of think about it, is it's really something that allows us to have access equally to opportunities, to resources, to support, to coaching, to guidance, to, you know, all allow us to kind of reach our potential, regardless of where you're at. Okay, you could be in the workplace, you could be accessing services through Aurora Chamber, you could be accessing services through the communities in which you live and work. Really, that's the whole concept of equity. And if you then look at layering on the whole inclusion piece, the inclusion piece, if you look at the formal definition, it's the act of including or the state of being included. But if you think about its practical application, it's really the idea of respecting and valuing the unique dimensions and perspectives that bring us together and allow us to contribute. And so the whole idea behind diversity, equity, inclusion, and play, if you think about it as, I want to value those around me. I want to value the skills, the strengths, what makes them who they are. I mean, I've had the benefit of doing these, the I am statements with a number of different organizations. This is part of our standard diversity, equity, and inclusion program. And I've heard things like, I was a prisoner of war. I've heard things like, you know, I escaped my home country through tunnels because I was being sexually assaulted by the government there. Like, these stories are what make people who they are. And so it's the whole concept of, how do we value these people? These people have incredible life experiences. We all have different experiences that we're bringing to the table every single day. How do we value those differences on a day-to-day basis? And so if we talk about the concept of valuing and leveraging people's differences, because we're all different, because we are all bringing different experiences. I mean, I loved hearing everybody's stories today. And I call them stories intentionally because this is who you are, okay? These are the stories that you tell probably people who you're very comfortable with. You may not have ever thought about, you know, saying to others, I'm caring, I'm determined, I'm, you know, I'm an adventurer, you know, I'm you know, a mom, I'm a, you know, a family person. You may not have ever thought about sharing it in that way in an open environment within your organizations. What it does do is it starts breaking down barriers. Okay, and the whole idea behind diversity, equity, and inclusion is, how do we break down barriers in our own organizations so that everybody can contribute fully, everybody feels valued when they come to work. We're leveraging the differences that everybody has. And so if you think about kind of based on our discussions, so why do you think it's important to value differences others bring to the table? Why should we even bother?
Well, my answer to that is, we don't know everything. And the minute you think that you do know everything, that's when you're going to really start making serious errors and mistakes. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter, you know, whether you're young, old, or indifferent. My attitude has always been, you're going to learn something new almost every day. How you determine that's going to apply or affect you, that's your choice. But if you don't open yourself up to that possibility, I think you're really stunting yourself, if nothing else. So that's why, you know, the people I work with, again, whether they're above me, beside me, or below me in the organization chart, I want to hear what you have to say, because you never know whether you're going to learn something from that or not.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Some guy.
And I think the value of our differences helps us understand how best to communicate our messages to different people. Because if you don't understand where they're coming from or what they've dealt with, that same message that you thought was a simple statement could be very hurtful and taken the wrong way. So it helps us ensure that we're always staying conscious of our communication styles with the different people.
And I will tell you, that's a really good point, because people are really scared to ask questions about people's identities. They really are. They're really tentative about it, particularly like we work with organizations of all different sizes, all different sectors. And I will tell you, the team member base is usually quite apprehensive to ask questions of each other. And they're apprehensive because they don't really know how to ask questions in a safe environment. And so when you can open up the conversations and learn to really communicate effectively, it makes it all of a sudden a safer space for us to share those experiences. And the interesting thing about valuing differences and really making sure that we're safeguarding, what people are bringing to the table on a day-to-day basis, the more diverse our workplace is, the more we value the differences that people bring to the table, we have higher productivity. We have greater creativity, more innovation, greater engagement levels. This is all done through research. It's proven that the more diverse we are, and I'm not just saying diversity as you would think about it, skin color, ethnic origin, religious background, all of those things. It's really all of the differences that we have. I mean, all of us conveyed some of our differences today. If you value all of those differences, what you're going to find is creativity, innovation, leveraging people's points of view. All of that increases your results. Okay, that's all proven. Okay, I see Fiona is just heading to a meeting. Okay, no problem. Let me just populate this a little bit more. Okay, so why is it important to value the differences others bring to the table? Okay. Oh, sorry, this generated it wrong. It generated in a different format. Okay, it generated 0.2 before 0.1. 0.1 actually came first. So there is a difference that I want to just bring to everyone's attention between valuing, tolerating, and accepting. Because sometimes I'll hear when we do sessions like this, sometimes I'll hear people say, well, I accept the differences that people bring to the table. And I'm like, okay, accepting actually has a negative connotation. And then they'll say, well, I tolerate people. And I'm like, it's not about tolerance. It's about how do you actually take the differences that we have, show the value in those differences, and learn from those experiences. And David, you said you're always wanting to learn about other people and learning what makes other people who they are and get their point of view on the table. That's one of the biggest reasons why we say we actually value differences. If you're telling me you're tolerating differences or you're accepting differences, you're actually not valuing people.
Yeah,
you're
that's
actually
a really
just
good
saying, sorry,
yeah,
go ahead,
no,
David.
That's a great point, because one of the people that I work with, and we have a very good relationship where we can say things and that could be taken the wrong way, but we're not afraid to because we know each other well enough that we can talk about it clearly. And this person said to me, he says, you always care, but sometimes I know when you're not in a good place, because although you try to care, I can tell in the tone of your voice.
Yeah.
But she knows that. Now, somebody else may not pick up on that and may take something I say differently simply because they heard it the wrong way, but because this person, I would like to think, values what I have to bring to the table, they can read through that and they can actually draw from it what really is important. So I think that to me is one of the advantages of listening.
Yeah, and again, when we're talking about the differences that we bring, it could be in, you may deal with one thing one way, somebody else may deal with it a different way. We're not all robots. We're not all going to do things the same way. It's how we learn about each other and ask, even ask some questions to seek to understand where somebody's head is at. That's valuing the differences that people bring. All right, so how can we leverage the differences of your team going forward? So think about your own team, think about your own environment. What can you do to leverage the differences of your own team?
I would say talking to your members and when they're comfortable, discussing them, and you know, kind of getting to know people on a little bit of a deeper level, and you know, finding out stuff about people, getting to know people more. We're not just workers, we're people that are working within the company, you know. I think that's super important to try and get to know people.
Mm-hmm. And particularly right now, I will tell you the connection point that you have with your team members, and we'll talk about this when we get together. We talked about it a bit last week. We'll talk about it again in the next session. The connection point that you have with people right now is so, so critical, because people are not in a great mindset. You've got team members, I can guarantee you, who are suffering tremendously. They're not really sure, you know, where their head is at. You showing that you value them and that you're wanting to understand, you know, how they're doing, you know, what's going on with them in that safe environment where you're able to talk things through and be supportive of them. It's even that much more important right now. Okay. So it was always important before to value the differences of the team. It's even more important right now, where people are feeling so tentative about things. If they can feel safe in one spot, I would love for one of those spots to be work. Okay.
Absolutely.
I would love it. I would love to see people create this safe space where they're really helping their teams just be really, you know, supported right now and cared for in a way that might be foreign to some organizations. But what we're trying to do is get people there, get people valuing the differences by really talking to people and making sure that people are aware that they're deeply cared for in the organizations in which they work. What's another way to value the differences?
You can give them opportunity based on what you learn about them. So, you know, whether that's opportunity within the organization or to, you know, someone who is outgoing may be the one that does all of the social activities or has those ideas, or someone who has people who have similar experiences or similar interests can take that forward and bring something new to the company that you didn't have before, that potentially could shift the way that you act.
Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about that idea, Suzanne, is you've got to explore again what makes people strong and when people are at their most powerful. And one of the best ways to do that is to just talk to them and figure out where their strengths lie, what makes them happy at work, what makes them motivated, what makes them highly productive. I know when I had Danson join the Enliven team back in July of last year, I said to him in the interview process, I was like, what do you love to do? Like, tell me what part of HR you love to do, and I will try to help you find that body of work. And he loves employee engagement work, and he loves doing surveys with clients, and he loves getting to the bottom of what's making an organization struggle at any particular time. And so I see, like, it's like the light bulb goes off and he's got these fireworks as soon as I start seeing him working on employee engagement initiatives. And so I'm tapping into what he's good at. I'm tapping into what he's powerful at. There is a really good, and it's complimentary right now. I'll share it with Sandra so she can send it out to the whole group. It's the Marcus Buckingham Standout Assessment. And what it is it's a strength-based assessment that helps you to identify your top 2 strengths and how to play to those strengths on a day-to-day basis. And I will tell you, I did this, this assessment back in 2013, and I was working corporate side HR at the time, and I actually realized I was in the wrong role. And I went back into consulting probably about 3 months later, because I recognized I'm not playing to my strengths every day. I'm not at my best. I'm not as powerful as I used to be. And so I ended up going back into consulting and doing exactly what we're doing today, is working, you know, with different organizations. It's where my love is. And I was then playing to my strengths, and I felt so much better, like health-wise, I felt better, energy-wise, I felt better. So Sandra, I'll make sure I get you the link to that. Please, everybody know, I have no idea how long it's going to be complimentary for. They're doing it because of COVID right now, but as COVID restrictions continue to lift, who knows how much longer it's going to be complimentary. So if you are wanting to do the assessment, do it sooner rather than later. Okay, it's just my word of guidance. Otherwise, it's $15 US. It's not terrible. Okay. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your plan. I'm just going to do a quick time check. Okay, 10 minutes. Good. Okay. So if you think about your plan to create an inclusive workforce, and I want you to just kind of think about these elements. We've kind of talked a little bit about some of them today, but think about your organization. It could be as big or as small, it doesn't really matter. All of the elements are still going to be the same. Okay, so I don't want you to think, well, I only have 2 people, like Enliven has 2 people. I don't want you to think, oh, we can't do that in this world because we're too small. You can do this in any size organization. Okay. All right, so all right. So one is to provide education, training, and support to your team. Okay, that's one way to create an inclusive workforce where people have access to opportunities, training, development, that we're actually educating people on this whole concept of what is this inclusive workforce thing? What is this diversity, equity, and inclusion thing? What does valuing differences look like? How do we play to our strengths on a day-to-day basis? That's part of that training and education side, okay? And some of this stuff does not need to cost money, everyone. I just want to be very clear on that. There are great platforms for free training and development. If you're looking for certain skill sets to be built or certain technical skills, Coursera is a fabulous platform that offers, you can get either certified using the paid version or not certified using the unpaid version. So it's a great platform that you can use to help educate your team and provide them opportunities to learn at no cost to your organization. Also empowering team members to open up about their identities. One of the biggest things that I have found has changed organizations that we're working with is giving them opportunities like we did today, which is to voice what makes them who they are. How do we look at, their experiences in life? That's how you learn to leverage people, is you're learning about people, you're valuing those differences, and then you're leveraging those differences for the betterment of their own learning, the learning for the organization, learning for others. So get people to open up about their identities. Nancy, you got a question.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to ask you, because we're looking for training in diversity inclusion, not only for our staff, but also in how we can support clients better and be more inclusive. And you mentioned a course, did you say Coursera?
Yeah, Coursera exists, not necessarily, I don't know what they have on the diversity, equity, and inclusion front, but they do have, like if you're looking, I know for technical functional skills, I always send clients to Coursera because they may have like intro to financial accounting. They may have, if you're looking for education on like Excel, PowerPoint, like they've got really good courses. They've got good courses on like data analytics, graphic design. So the technical functional side, they definitely have some. They also have courses on this, and this may be, Nancy, what you're thinking may help you. There's a lot of, I'm going to call it, and I'm putting it in quotes intentionally, happiness courses right now that they're offering. I have not explored whether or not they have a diversity, equity, and inclusion slant to them. So okay. I don't know, like they have happiness at work sessions. If you drop me an email, I can send you a link to the platform.
Okay, I'd appreciate that because I'm actually looking for courses that are funded or that I can get funding to get diversity training for the organization. So that would help. Thank you.
And I can give you some other guidance on that because there are grant dollars available through Canada Job Grants where you may be able to have your training and development fully funded. We've been successful getting it for leader development programs for some clients.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So another element of creating an inclusive workforce, obviously value the differences that people bring to work, but you got to figure out what they are first. Providing opportunities for team members to develop inside your walls. And I intentionally say inside your walls because there is this whole concept behind, and we'll talk about this next session, is how do we actually build talent internally versus buying it from the outside? If you have to buy talent from the outside, it can be way more expensive. I'd rather you invest in your talent internally to build their capabilities so that they can be really high functioning, really contribute to the organization. It also shows that you are really caring about them as individuals and you'll be able to retain them a lot longer. And so you think about even, you know, the millennials, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit next session. You think about the millennials and the newer generations entering the workforce, they're going to leave every 1.7 to 1.9 years. So if you take that into account and we say to ourselves, you know what, instead, I'm actually going to develop myself, right? I'm going to develop within these walls. I'm going to invest in the people that work with me. Then the better thing is you've got a really good setup now for maintaining those people who would normally leave in and around the 1.7 to 1.9 year time frame. If you develop them within your walls and give them unique opportunities, you're going to keep them longer. How much longer, I don't know, but you will be able to retain those individuals a lot longer. Like I've seen people who are in the newer generations entering the workforce, and with proper development, they're actually staying on average another 3 years longer. That's what we've experienced with our client base. Okay. All right, some more elements. So design connection points so people can collaborate, learn from one another, and leverage each other's strengths. And so if that means that you create opportunities for those connection points, whether it's lunch and learn sessions, whether it's, you know, coffee chats, whether it's, you know, different opportunities for people to just come together to connect on things. What we have found through COVID in particular is we've become a bit of an antisocial community. And so if you think about, you know, your organizations, people aren't as ready and willing to have those conversations right now because people are holding back. People are really, again, tentative in their own minds. They're trying to figure things out. They're trying to sort through their own feelings on what's happened through the pandemic. If we can create connection points for people, now we're bringing people together again. And what we're doing is we're saying, our community cares about you. So the community is your organization. The community cares about you. We're going to bring people together again. We're going to get people talking. We're going to have less transactional things happening within our workplace. And we're going to create very intentional, meaningful connections between the teams. Okay, so that's another good element that you can just infuse. Okay, align any of your HR programs. Okay, so right now your HR programs should all talk to one another, whether it's job descriptions into the recruitment process, into training and development. All of your HR programs should be talking. And if they aren't, what we should be doing is aligning them from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective, okay? And so if you think about the way in which you're interviewing, for example, and we can talk about this a little bit next session as well, when we're talking about the whole concept of interviewing, making sure that you're incorporating questions that are diverse, making sure that you are, you know, we have clients that when we get their interview guides, it still says like he, she on the questions. I'm like, okay, that's not inclusive at all. It's not inclusive language. And so we actually modify all of that. We create very neutral language when we're asking questions. And so what it does is it opens up and aligns your programs so that you are deemed to be an inclusive workforce and living and breathing that. You can say that you're an inclusive workforce. If the programs don't show that, people aren't going to buy into it. And so that's one of the key components here is you've got to actually display you are making that effort. All right, and so my last point here is get a pulse for how the team is feeling, okay? So if you are not, and it doesn't matter what size you are again, okay? Whoop, let me go back here. If you know, it doesn't matter how large the organization, get a pulse again. So figure out, can you do a pulse survey? Does your organization already do, like I'm thinking about like David, for example, your organization may do broader employee engagement surveys or opinion surveys. If you can get a pulse of what's going on in the organization every quarter from your team, you're going to be able to make a lot of traction in this space, because what you're going to be able to do is you're saying to the team, I'm listening to what your concerns are, and we're going to create task forces to help you in trying to resolve some of these organizational issues. And you do not have to do it so that it's laborious or complex. I always say, ask the most basic questions. We don't need to overcomplicate HR programming, okay? We don't need to spend a ton of money doing it. We just need to be very practical in our approach. And I always say the best people to figure out what's going on in the organization is your team. So if you get the pulse results, let's say they're not where you want them to be, get your team trying to fix it. Get them focusing on what needs to change in the organization.
One thing I also do with my team is I empower them with the ability to call these meetings themselves. So they take ownership of it. So in other words, if they feel it's necessary, then they can call the meeting because they have access to everybody's calendar in my group. So I give them that ability to do that as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that. It's a very inclusive behavior, which I love. Suzanne, you have a question?
Yeah, I just was curious about, you kind of answered it saying ask basic questions, but I wondered if you had examples of questions to get the pulse of the organization. I think that there's, you know, and how each quarter, I would assume you want to change the questions. You don't want them to always be the same. So just trying to figure out what that suite of questions is and when to ask them. I think if I had a kind of a bit of a cheat sheet of things that, you know, commonly asked questions that can help deliver on really pulse, that would be really helpful.
What I can do is if you drop me a quick email, I can share with you the areas that we focus on, not the questions per se, because, you know, those are obviously proprietary to Enliven. But what I can do is I can share with you the areas in which we call them the key drivers to engagement. So what keeps people in your organization? And then what you can do is create questions in each of those key drivers. And if you have one question per driver per quarter, and they rotate, then that may be where you'll get your most benefit, I suspect. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. All right. So key takeaways for today. One, consider what you bring to the table and share your experiences with others. Don't feel shy to share your experiences. And that's part of why I wanted you to do this exercise today, because you can replicate this exercise internally and do some work with your teams as well on this whole concept of, you know, how do we create a more inclusive workplace? It's by valuing the differences. The only way to figure out the differences is to talk, okay? And that's why I said, you know, number two, create opportunities to spend time speaking with others about what makes them all different. And we have one client who, it's an organization that's growing really, really quickly right now. It's a tech company, and they asked us to do these diversity, equity, and inclusion workshops with them. And what they've done is people didn't even know each other because they're growing so quickly. It was the first time, and it was all done online. It was the first time people had met each other. So they knew nothing about each other, but moving forward, what they did is they continued to actually meet. So after we did these sessions, they started holding lunchtime sessions where people could just join randomly so people could continue the conversations. And so that was so nice to hear that they continue to maintain that momentum because they really valued getting to know one another and knowing that they could just ask questions in this safe space where they were really starting now to get to know one another. That creates that bond with people, okay, that added collaboration. Okay, so that's always something you can try. And then just the last point here is celebrate the caring community that you have, share it and celebrate it often, okay, by leveraging the strengths of others. And I talk about a caring community specifically right now because I do worry that if we don't have this caring community in place, that people are going to continue to leave. And so creating this really comfortable space for people to come to, I'm not just saying aesthetics, I'm talking about just the relationships. It's about building those relationships right now, having that really strong culture in place, valuing those differences. I think that that is kind of the magic right now that, you know, that we're hoping to achieve with most of our clients. All right, so when you leave today, some food for thought, okay? I want you to think about after leaving today, how can you continue to build a caring and inclusive culture? And I want you to specifically think about your thoughts, okay? Your behaviors and your own actions. And so I want you to think about one thing you want to stop doing, okay? Because you learned something new today. One thing you want to start doing because you learned something new. and one thing you want to continue to do because you already know it's working. Okay, that's my action planning. So what questions do you have for me coming out of our session today?
Jody, I would be interested in some sort of, you know, if there's anything out there on some sort of retraining on this that we could roll out to all of our staff, that possibly they could do, you know, on their own time, like during the work hours, of course, I mean, but maybe something that, you know, we're not, people's schedules are so very different that maybe they could do it, you know, within their own workday, and perhaps not as a group. I fully encourage trying to get people together as a group, but you would never get everybody.
Yeah. What you can do, Trish, is if you connect in with me, we can just schedule a quick call and I can see what I can,
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions based on kind of content of today? How does everyone feel coming out of today's session?
I thought it was
enjoyed
great.
it. Yeah,
good.
I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
I feel like I have a few more tools, and I'm looking forward to getting to know my team a bit better.
Good. Yeah, and that's really what I want to do, is open up the conversation, right? How you open up the conversation is really up to you. And it's really about what you do as next steps to create that inclusive workplace where people are feeling valued. All right, so thank you for attending today. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can always connect in with me. I'm happy to send you over any of the things that we talked about today. Just drop me a quick note. And yeah, even if you have some comments that you want to share with me privately, I'm happy to schedule some time to chat.
Thank you so much, Jody.
Thank you, Jody.
Really great session. Really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. Thank you so much. And Jody's next session will be Wednesday, March 30th, 12 to 1:30. So when I send out the recording from this session, I'll include the link if anybody wants to register for that session. And we look forward to seeing everybody again. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, Jody. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be well, everyone, okay? We'll talk soon. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.